Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands. Welcome to an SP Reviews where today we have ourselves a track by an act named Fred Vanterra titled Amry. And if we switch over to here we have ourselves the album Methanian. This track is Amry off of Methanian from Fred Vanterra from their record label Vanterra Arts. So without further ado, we're going to listen through this track from start to finish. And we're going to hear what we think. Let's go. Oh, it's starting with a really pretty piano line. Oh, yeah, that's... I like the free-flowing tempo of it. Dynamic range to it. Cool response between the two hands. Such a peaceful thing to finish a day on, you know? It's been a hell of a day today, but I like reviewing music like this. Got some serious chops on our right hand, don't we? You know, the fluidity between those different broken chords arpeggios and then just going on sort of a solo run. A bit of glissando almost, you know, kind of the legato runs is fantastic. Iterating over those different chord progressions. Yep, sensational. I like the variety and the technicality of the various parts. Some octave shifts. Almost a weird sort of playfulness to it. Oh, interesting use of staccato there. Some kind of sharp textures. I mean, there's just so much variety to the performance within itself. Like with an instrumental piece, you need to change the tempos. You need to have different key signatures and bass lines. You need to have varieties to the extensions of some of those chords, and you need to have a personality to your approach with it. Those kind of little gallops. I can imagine a little animal there. The little those sharp kind of flat seconds or something, or maybe some seventh extensions there, like but without the filler. Being a little bit of an alert of danger or something, you know? It evokes imagery. See, that's not a fade out. That's just technique. Charming. That's fantastic. That was a great journey that we went on. And welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from Fred Vanterra, titled Amry, from their Methanian album. Now, what do I think this track is about? I'm not sure what Amry means. So the best meaning that I could get from Google is that Amry means home strength. It's like a name for like a kid. You can give it to a boy. Amry is a boy's name. It means home strength. And I mean, in and out of that meaning there, when I listen to the track, I think there is a sense of strength within the positivity and the sophisticated approach to that. I mean, we could have gone for a really cheesy type of majorish, with the different chords we had there, but there was a refined nature to the different, like it was a boom, boom, boom. We messed around with that bass line for quite a lot, with variations going into the minor and the middle part. Like the structure of the track was like an ABA, right? We had the main theme evoked in the center. We built up to that over time with that kind of bell curve, and then we kind of had that flutter downwards where we had the little bit of the galloping stuff with the short notes, and then we kind of returned to the main motif later on. I think the story that I was trying to tell was of maybe someone rising up. This is what I got from the song itself, from listening to it. Piano made me imagine someone kind of rising up, becoming stronger, getting to a point where they're okay and every life is good. And then there's like a sense of darkness with that minor turn that we have. And then there's a bit of trepidation there, uncertainty or danger. And then boom, we're walking our way through, trying to feel our way through a bit of danger though. Maybe we end up there being a detriment, something bad occurs. And then we come away from that, eventually going back to where we were before, realizing that we can overcome any adversity that we find ourselves facing toward. I think that's my interpretation of the piano parts in this track. And there was a lack of vocals in this song because it was an instrumental, which leaves, of course, the piano to be the vocals. And if I'm honest, I think the piano did a pretty good job as a solo instrument without needing anything more to it. We clearly are, in fact, there were no other instruments, so it was literally just the piano, and we clearly understand the instrument, very, very well. We showed a great control of both hands. I liked that we understood music theory and composition to an extent where we not only had one main motif, we also knew how to vary the different tail ends on the harmonies and arpeggios and extensions there. We also had variations on the right hand runs whilst the left hand was doing a cool response in that bass line and kind of refining and providing a foundation for that. I like the fact that we messed around with the tempos and we knew to sort of have some parts slower or some parts quicker to kind of accelerate or to kind of bring things down a little bit, and that affected the mood in a way that made sense with the chord changes and the bass and like with the arrangement that we had. I think that the way we played it made sense with what we were hearing. I think we have a firm understanding of not just how to evoke moods within a listener, but also how to actually play that, because it wasn't just changing the speed of your hands, it's also known to have less and then sometimes more. There were points where Fred would become very, very technical, especially with that right hand, and would do these massive octave shifts or would do these like legato runs that were very quick on the keys, but it never ever felt like too much, and we never ever did it for too long. We would kind of pull back a little bit to simplify things so that the listener doesn't get used to that complexity. It makes it more interesting when you vary the amount of notes you play for the listener. It makes it unpredictable, and when you've got yourself an instrumental where there's not like a main lead voice literally telling you the words to the story and holding your hand as you go through it, you've got to not only play well and write well, but also give the listener a reason to continue going despite the lack of context. You've got to invite the listener to make up their own mind about it and their own sort of reality of it. Outside my own interpretation of what the piano part's about, outside of the comments where we clearly have someone who's very competent on the instrument and comfortable with expressing themselves, I assume the rest of this Methanian album is to the same quality. I assume it's a very, very good listen. And I'm glad that this has gotten some attention on the page as well, like a few thousand plays for quite a few of these tracks, which is really good. I don't really think we could have improved this track. I think that it was more, the 4 minutes that we had, the 4 minutes 18 here that we had, was more of an experience rather than a life lesson or anything like that. I think this is simply Fred, alongside what we had from his previous album, the Waikiki synth album, where I reviewed a track called Waikiki Bit. I think we're a fan of representing one concept in different ways. And while I would have to listen to the entire album to really get a gauge of what the bigger picture is or the bigger scope here, I think that it does have almost a cinematic kind of vibe to it with how it's produced. You could imagine this being on a film score or something like that. And I really hope that if Fred Vanterra isn't already doing it, that he looks into doing stuff like that, because he's clearly competent as a composer and as a performer. And it also just sounds like a commercial grade kind of piece. There was lovely amounts of dynamic range to it. And yeah, we played our heart out without overplaying, without stepping the boundaries. And final thing before we move on to the recording, mixing, and mastering, I liked the fact that we had very few harsh textures, because it made the music sound more warm and caring, even when there were darker passages there with the minor tonalities. I think that with lots of bright stuff happening on the, there's a sense of innocence, like snow falling from the clouds or something like that, but there also needs to be a sense of tension. If things are happy all the time, you get used to it and you don't even feel that happy anymore, which is why I think we had that minor turn there. But it's also just reducing or resisting the urge to really kind of allow the quote-unquote tone of the track to fester by having too many flat second parts. We had a couple of staccatos, a couple of little short bursts there of discomfort, and then we were back to kind of resolving to something a little more pleasant. So yeah, great amount of variety in here. I'm very happy with it. It's good to hear more of Fred Vanterra's stuff and to be able to enjoy it. And basically, again, the recording, mixing, and mastering, the studio production was on point. I think the piano was nicely filtered and EQ'd. There was dynamic range to it. It wasn't the same loudness the entire time. Clearly, we played it live. Like, nothing was automated or quantized or anything like that. We just played the keys the way we knew how. We articulated ourselves really eloquently on the keys and told a story with it. We didn't need to do any sort of extra effects, chain processing, or anything like that. It just sounds like someone playing a piano, which is so great. And it is surprisingly rare nowadays, While it's great to have reverb and delay chains on instruments, sometimes just having the raw keys can be really good. It can almost be a unique thing. I think that in addition to that, again, the dynamic range there, you can't really compare leveling because it was the only thing, but it was nice and loud without pumping despite the dynamic range. So limiting compression was handled well. And I mean, basically, this is my review of a really compelling track from Fred Vanterra titled Amry off of their Methanian album. And hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show them some love via the various social medias and the Spotify page. And stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as either hell more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next review. Spiderhands out.